Ukraine's an interesting case. People always want to know my feeling. Number one, we're in for 200 billion plus, and the European nations are in for 20 billion. And it's more important for them. And don't you think they should equalize? Nobody asks them. It's like I did with NATO. I said, we're paying for NATO, and we don't get so much out of it. And you know, I hate to tell you this about NATO. If we ever needed their help, let's say we were attacked, I don't believe they'd be there. I don't believe. I know the people. I know them. I can tell you country by country who would be there and who, but I don't believe they'd be there.
This is my video update on this Sunday, January the 28th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Trump's speech at a rally in Nevada, where Trump said that he is not so confident if the U.S. was attacked that NATO would assist the United States, which is an interesting comment from Trump, because without the United States, there is no NATO. The U.S. is NATO, and NATO is 100% dependent on the United States. So it's an interesting comment from Trump, but you know, it opens up the conversation, the talking point of why fund NATO? Why should the U.S. be funding NATO? And I think the U.S. is like 70% of NATO's budget. 70% of the funding to NATO is pretty much the United States. So why fund and support NATO if there really is no purpose to NATO, at least with regards to assisting the United States? It does no good for the U.S. If the U.S. was attacked, what is NATO going to really do? Nothing. I mean, that's obvious. What's NATO going to do? The UK is going to send their 40 Challenger tanks that they have left, or Germany's going to supply the big bad Leopard tanks that the Russians demolished within a day. So I mean, Trump is right. He opens up the dialogue and the discussion around NATO. Why are we giving so much money to NATO if it doesn't benefit the United States? And that leads into Project Ukraine. Why are we giving so much money to the Zelensky regime and Project Ukraine? Especially now, with the understanding that Ukraine has lost this war. Why give it more money? So it was an interesting comment from Trump, and no doubt when Trump says stuff like this, the Europeans and Stoltenberg, they're going to freak out, man. They are going to freak out when they listen to Trump say stuff like this about NATO. What good is NATO for the United States? This is what Trump said. We're paying for NATO, and we don't get so much out of it. He told a crowd in Las Vegas, Nevada. And you know, I hate to tell you this about NATO. If we ever needed their help, let's say we were attacked, I don't believe they'd be there, the former president said. I know the people. I know the people. And Trump does know the people. Remember that time when he went to Europe? And there's that photo when he was in Europe, and I don't know if it was in NATO headquarters or at the EU, but or a G20 meeting or G7 meeting. I forgot what the reason for this trip was, but Trump was sitting at a desk, and he had his arms folded. He had this defiant, I don't give an F look to him, and and you had all of the European. I think it was like the G7 leaders, all of the G7 or the EU leaders, and they're all standing over Trump. Merkel is taking the lead, and she's like got her hands on the desk, and she's standing over Trump, like looking at Trump, like, hey, what are you talking about? You're not going to give us any more money. It was that kind of look that Merkel had, and all of the G7 and the European leaders. They were all around Merkel, just staring at Trump, and you could tell it was it was that look of you're not going to pay us any more money, or you don't want to give us any more money. That was the look on their faces. But yeah, that photo kind of said it all. The EU leaders, they don't like Trump. That's obvious, with the exception of Orban and Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson came out the other day and said that he supports Trump. An interesting statement from Trump. And this kind of leads into all of the articles talking about how Europe needs to prepare for war with Russia. Even Australia now is coming out with articles saying that they need to prepare for war with Russia. News.com.au, they put out an article with the title, Australia must consider bringing back conscription as all-out war with Russia looms, experts says. This article talks about war with Russia, but it also talks about war with China and all kinds of stuff like that. And the Telegraph, they put out an article yesterday with the title, Why It May Already Be Too Late for the West to Avoid War. Europe must rearm at once to prevail over dictators who threaten humanity. Actually, this is from today, the 28th of January. So this article from the Telegraph came out today, this Sunday. Why it may already be too late for the West to avoid war. So you're getting all of these articles from all over the collective West talking about how war is coming with Russia in 1 year, in 3 years, by 2025, in 10 years, in 20 years. It's unavoidable. There's going to be a smash with Russia and the Putin. And I think that there is a connection to the fact that the collective West is trying to cope with their loss in Ukraine. So there is a level of coping, understanding that Putin defeated them. So that's why you're seeing a lot of these articles come out. And of course, a lot of these articles are about increasing the budgets and the spending for weapons. So the MIC, they can benefit from all of this. So you have to purchase more weapons in anticipation of the war with Russia. And that's what every government in the collective West now has to do. They have to spend more on buying weapons. And this Telegraph article actually is dedicated to just talking about how more money needs to be spent on purchasing weapons. That's pretty much 80% of this article from the Telegraph just talks about more weapons spending. So that's what's at play here as well. But really what all of this panic is about with regards to a war with Russia is it's all about Trump. Yes, it's a little bit about Putin. Yes, it's about money and keeping the MIC payments flowing. But really what this is about is that all of the collective West, which despises Trump, the collective West leaders, which despise Trump, with the exception of Orban and Boris the Clown, but all the other leaders, they are trying to cope with the fact that Trump is going to be the nominee and could very possibly be the next president of the United States. It's that reality is starting to hit them. And so a lot of this is all about Trump becoming president. What do we do? What do we do if Trump becomes president? He's going to take the U.S. out of NATO. He's going to stop the money flowing into NATO. He's going to pull out of Project Ukraine. He's going to stop funding Project Ukraine. He's going to put an end to this war and that war and any other future wars. And so they're starting to freak out because this is their business. Their business is war. This is how NATO makes money. This is how most of the politicians in the collective West are making money. It's a huge business. And they never liked Trump. He was never part of their clique, never part of their group, and they don't want Trump. They don't want Trump in as president of the United States because it's going to be bad for business, bad for their pocketbooks, for their wallets. So I think a lot of these articles that are coming out, fear mongering about war with Russia and how more money needs to be spent on weapons, and we need to prepare to fight the Russians, and the Russians are coming and war is inevitable. A lot of this is about, I would say most of this is about the collective West finally, the collective West leadership finally realizing that Trump could very well be the president of the United States in 2024. And they're freaking out. They are freaking out. So, what do? You fearmonger, you scare your citizens, and you try to centralize more power and control in your hands, while at the same time getting richer because you're giving out more weapons contracts. And who better a boogeyman than the Putin in Russia? So that's what I think is going on. And let me read you the first couple of paragraphs from this Telegraph article. Why it may already be too late for the West to avoid war. For the first time in generations, Britain has been gripped by the fear of a third world war. It began when the Norwegian commander-in-chief Erik Christoforou predicted that the West had 2, maybe 3 years to prepare for war with Russia. He was echoing similar warnings from other NATO chiefs. Then Donald Trump triumphed again in the New Hampshire primary, thereby rendering a Biden-Trump rematch next November a racing certainty. This raises the specter of chaos in Washington with dire consequences for Ukraine, for Europe, and the cause of democracy. And the week ended with the ominous appearance of Vladimir Putin himself in Kaliningrad, Russia's fortified enclave between Poland and Lithuania. Putin's presence there is a stark reminder that if NATO leaves Ukraine in the lurch, Russia is ready to move against the Baltic states too. So they give it away in the first couple of paragraphs, right? Putin traveled to Kaliningrad, his own country. Putin traveled to his own country. Kaliningrad is Russia. Putin traveled to Russia, and that's dangerous. God forbid that Putin travels to Russia, travels within Russia. God forbid. The ominous appearance of Putin in his own country. It's like it's like the Russians saying Biden traveled to Alaska. Oh my God, the ominous appearance of Bidenopolis in Alaska. We need to prepare for war with the United States because Biden appeared in Alaska. That's just silly, man. That is just silly. So they need to prepare for war with the Putin. He traveled to Kaliningrad. That's a very bad sign. It's a very dangerous sign, Putin traveling to Kaliningrad. But they give it away. Donald Trump triumphed again in the New Hampshire primary. There it is. That's it. That's reality smacking them in the face. Hitting them. Boom. Trump won in New Hampshire. Crap. He's going to be the Republican candidate. And he's ahead in the polls against Biden. And chances are he's going to win. This raises the specter of chaos in Washington. That's what this article says. Yeah, like Washington under Biden has been organized and under control, and all has been good. No chaos under Biden. But for them it's been good. For them, business has been booming under Biden. They've got what? 2 wars going on, possibly 3, you could say. You got Project Ukraine. You got Israel and Gaza. You have Yemen and what's going on in the Red Sea. You have a possible war with Iran. If Biden wins, then you probably have a war with China as well. So under Biden, yeah, business has been good in Washington and in Brussels. God forbid that Trump wins and, he ruins that business. So that is the Telegraph. Let me read you the two last paragraphs from this article as well. The rest of the article is just all about making the case for more spending on weapons. That's the rest of the article. But the last two paragraphs say the Anglo-American naval action in the Red Sea is a reminder that only the West cares about preserving peace and the rule of law. We are very efficient at dealing with the likes of the Houthis. I don't think so. Now it's the time to show that the West, including all who share our values, is capable of dealing not only with pirates who threaten trade routes, but with dictators who threaten humanity. If we cherish the peace that has prevailed over most of mankind since 1945, we owe it to prosperity to prepare for war. In order to keep the peace, we have to prepare for war. The peace and prosperity since 1945. Yeah, I think a lot of countries and a lot of people would take issue with that comment. A lot of the world would take issue with that statement from the Telegraph. But pirates are featuring very prominently in the last couple of paragraphs from this article from the Telegraph. They claim that they're handling the pirates of Yemen pretty well. They're handling everything in the Red Sea, no problem. No problem, they say. We are very efficient at dealing with the likes of the Houthis. Really? Really? Are you sure about that, Telegraph? Because last I checked, things are not going too well in the Red Sea, especially for the UK. I actually think there was a UK ship that was hit by Yemen the other day. Yeah, I think they did hit a UK ship. So, Operation Prosperity Guardian hasn't been working too well against against the Houthis. And Yemen, they're allowing passage of ships from China. They're allowing ships from Russia to pass through the Red Sea. They're actually allowing ships from Saudi Arabia to pass through the Red Sea. Saudi Arabia, the country that they were at war with for what? 8 years, 6 or 8 years, and they just recently they got to a ceasefire. Like 2 months ago, they finally agreed to peace talks and to ceasefire, and they're even letting Saudi ships pass through the Red Sea. U.S. and UK ships, nope, you shall not pass. So let me put this graph on the screen, this little chart from the Telegraph, just so you can see what they're talking about as far as how the UK needs to ramp up its manufacturing and purchase of weapons and its citizen army as well. It needs to create this citizen army as well. So you can see here the UK, China, and Russia. 193,000 troops for the UK, 2 million China, 900K for Russia. Then you have the Air Force, 150 UK, 2.5K China, 4.1K Russia. Tanks, 227 UK, 6.3K China, 13K Russia, and naval vessels, 79 UK, 350 China, and 603 Russia. So that is the article from the Telegraph. That is the panic that is gripping the collective West. Even Australia now is getting in on some of this war with Russia action. Got to spend more money on weapons. Got to prepare because Australia is going to be heading into a conflict with Russia in the next 2-3 years. So let's see. Project Ukraine Project Ukraine, the Prime Minister, Denis Shmyhal, my precious, he said that the United States has promised the Zelensky administration that they will receive the Russian frozen assets. The U.S. will steal the Russian frozen assets that they can steal, that the U.S. can steal. So we're talking about 100 billion. 200 billion is with the EU, and 100 billion is with the U.S., something like that. And Shmyhal is saying that he's been given assurances from the Biden administration that Ukraine will indeed receive the Russian frozen assets. We have all the assurances from the U.S. about long-term support for Ukraine. For example, the seizure of Russian assets to fund the Ukrainian recovery, Shmyhal claimed. On Wednesday, a U.S. Senate committee approved the Rebuilding Economic Prosperity and Opportunity, REPO, for Ukrainians Act, which should help pave the way for such a move by Washington. If it passes both houses and is signed into law by President Joe Biden, Washington could seize the Russian central bank assets using such a measure against a country that it's not directly at war with for the first time in history, and effectively crushing trust in the U.S. financial system. Biden's crowning achievement of his 4 years as president will be to destroy, to crush all trust that the world had in the United States as a place of investment, as a place to park your money. That is going to be Biden's crowning achievement, because he is absolutely obsessed with Russia and Putin. Emotionally obsessed with the Putin. That is Bidenopolis. So Europe they can't figure it out. The EU is really having a hard time trying to find a way to steal the 200 billion. Not all of the member states are on board with this, because they understand that this would decimate the EU financial system. But Congress, it looks like they're moving forward with the Rebuilding Economic Prosperity and Opportunity for Ukrainians Act. REPO. That's what they're calling this act. The REPO Act. Interesting choice of a name, huh? Boy, oh boy. So yeah, they're approving the REPO Act, which will just need Biden's signature, and there you have it. The U.S. will then, the Biden White House will then steal the Russian assets. And they're trying to get these assets by February 24th, so they can make this announcement to mark the 2-year anniversary of the special military operation of the war in Ukraine. So they want to announce the theft of these assets to mark the occasion of 2 years of Project Ukraine. And you know, when they get the 100 billion, when they steal the 100 billion, the U.S., this is going to inevitably push the European Union to find a way, to find consensus, to figure out how they can steal the 200 billion. No doubt about it. Once the U.S. steals the 100 billion, the EU is not far behind in stealing the 200 billion. So there's an article in Newsweek which talks about Zelensky's corruption problem. And this article in Newsweek, it explains how Zelensky is the one Ukrainian leader who has really been serious about cleaning up corruption in Ukraine. And no joke, this is what this Newsweek article is claiming. And it explains all the narratives about Zelensky buying homes in Miami and LA and all over the world, and the shopping trips of his wife. And it explains all of these narratives as just being fake news and Russian propaganda. And this article in Newsweek really goes out of its way to portray Zelensky as a very honest, serious leader who wants to rid Ukraine of its corruption problem. And the reason that Newsweek put out this article trying to clean up Zelensky's corruption reputation is because Newsweek understands that the Biden White House is going to steal the 100 billion in Russian frozen assets, and they're going to hand it over to the Zelensky regime. They're going to wash it through the Zelensky regime, and when they steal the 100 billion, the American people are going to be like, "What the f are you guys doing? Are you guys crazy? You're stealing frozen assets from Russia, risking our financial trust in our financial institutions to give to this corrupt leader, to give to this corrupt country." And so Newsweek is trying to say, don't worry, Zelensky's not corrupt. So the 100 billion is going to be money well spent. That's why they're running this article. That's why they're cleaning up Zelensky's reputation in anticipation of the theft of the 100 billion and the pushback from giving that 100 billion to the corrupt regime of Zelensky. So we have this Take Our Border Back convoy that is making its way to Eagle Pass, Texas. From what I understand, this is a huge convoy. Like four states or 5 states are getting involved, and we're talking thousands and thousands of vehicles, hundreds and thousands of vehicles. And this is going to be a peaceful protest and rally. By the way, it's going to last for several days. And the media, they're running with articles claiming that this is going to be some far right, violent protests with guns and weapons and stuff like that. But I've been reading the statements from many of the people involved in this take our border back convoy, and they are making sure to give the message that this is a peaceful protest, no weapons, no arms, none of that stuff, and everything that the collective West media is reporting on is nonsense about this being some sort of armed convoy of far right agitators and stuff like that. So this is going to be interesting to watch. And my sense is that everyone that is involved in this convoy needs to be very careful, because this will be, I think, I hope it's not, I hope I'm wrong, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of feds and infiltrators who will try to stir up some chaos. So that's what worries me about things like this. So we're going to be watching this convoy, and hopefully everything is peaceful and remains peaceful. Wow, look at all this trash. Jeez. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. And let's see, maybe do one more story before we get into a couple of clown worlds. So yesterday in my video, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I was talking about the ICJ court ruling, I put up a screen grab from an announcement that the U.S. had pulled funding to the UNRWA, which is the organization in the United Nations, which provides so much support and aid and money and medical care and education to the Palestinians and to Gaza. And the U.S., they announced that they're going to pause the funding to the UNRWA. And a lot of the analysis was that this is being done as a form of punishment, right? Because of the ICJ ruling, and the ICJ is part of the UN framework. Because of their ruling the other day, the US has decided to pull funding from this UN institution, which is critical to the people of Gaza and to the Palestinians in the region. And today we got reports that I didn't talk about it in my video. I just flashed up a screen grab. But today we got reports that according to the United Nations, the Israeli authorities provided the UNRWA with information about the alleged involvement of several UNRWA employees in the horrific attacks on Israel on 7th of October. This is according to the agency's Commissioner General Philip Lazzarini. That is from a statement he made on Friday. Quote, any UNRWA employee who was involved in acts of terror will be held accountable, including through criminal prosecution. So they're opening up an investigation, and they're going to take a look at these claims from Israel that there were employees of the UNRWA who were involved in the terror attacks of October 7th. And what we're talking about here is 12 employees out of a total of 30,000 employees of the UNRWA. So Israel has given a list, from what I understand. They've given a list of 12 employees who they claim were involved with Hamas on October 7th. And the UNRWA, they have launched an investigation which could lead to criminal prosecution. And that is now being used as the reasoning for the U.S. pulling funding from the UNRWA. And it's not only the U.S. anymore. Canada, the U.K., Finland, Australia, Italy, Netherlands, a whole bunch of countries now are pulling their funding out of the UNRWA. By the way, Norway and Ireland, they said that they would not pull out funding from the UNRWA, and Switzerland said that no decision will be made with regards to funding until these accusations are clarified. So there you have it. 12 employees have been accused of terrorist acts or terrorist activities. They're going to be investigated. But because of these allegations in this investigation, all of these countries are pulling their funding out of the UNRWA. So, interesting story there. The UNRWA has 30,000 employees, 13,000 of which are in Gaza. Most of them are Palestine refugees and a small number of international staff. In Gaza, it runs 183 schools, 22 health facilities, and 7 women's centers, among several other facilities. Its schools are attended by 286,645 students in Gaza, while its medical facilities have 3.4 million average visits per year, according to UN data. So, yes, maybe there were, quite possibly. Quite probably there were employees of the UNRWA that were involved with Hamas on October 7th. That wouldn't shock me or surprise me. So investigate what's going on. If these people were involved, then bring up criminal proceedings against these people. But why do you have to pull out your money? I mean, if the U.S. pulled out money from institutions that it was funding every time there was some sort of criminal activity or something going on, then, I mean, nothing would get funded by the U.S. So, yes, I can understand that there were, and you're talking 12 employees out of 30,000. So, yes, there was a very small percentage of employees who may have been involved with Hamas, but I have to believe that much of this is about punishing the UN for the ICJ ruling, because the pulling of funds was made at the very same time that the ICJ ruled against Israel and in favor of South Africa. So, I mean, come on. Come on. Anyway, let's do a clown world. We'll wrap this video up. Germans are expected to make their own bomb shelters according to builds. So, in order to prepare for the war with Russia and the Putin, Germans are being told to, let me cross here. Germans are being told to prepare their own bomb shelters. Yep. Pretty incredible stuff, huh? At the same time, Bild is reporting that they're going to need the Germans to also protect like critical infrastructure and stuff like that. They're going to need a citizen army as well. It's not only the UK that's going to need a citizen army. Germany's going to need a citizen army as they head towards a war with Russia. In order for the citizen army, they're going to have to protect like energy facilities and stuff like that as the military engages the Russians. Oh man. And one more clown world. EU boss makes election U-turn. Charles Michel's change of mind comes days before a meeting between EU leaders on signing off on additional Ukraine aid. So look, Charles Michel, I've talked about this story in the past. Charles Michel was going to run for EU Parliament, and that meant that he would have to step down as EU Council President. I believe that's his position. And because there's a conflict there, you can't be the Council President and be running for Parliament at the same time. And this meant that that if Charles Michel was going to step down early, that there was a possibility that Viktor Orban in Hungary would have to assume the role of Council President, at least temporarily. And this freaked out the European Union in a big way. And so they were looking for replacements. At one point in time, they were even considering bringing Mario Draghi on board to step in for Michel, but it looks like at the end of the day, the solution was to sit Michel down and tell him, you're not running for Parliament, you're going to stay put as Council President, and that's that. And there you have it. Michel is not going to run for Parliament. He is going to remain as Council President. And let me pull up a quote from Charles Michel. In a statement on Friday, Michel said that his change of mind came after extreme reactions and personal attacks in response to his initial decision to seek election. Still, he added that he would devote all my efforts to my current responsibilities. I don't want this decision to distract us from our mission or undermine the institution and our European project, nor be misused in any way to divide the European Council, which I believe must work tirelessly for European unity, he said in comments posted on social media. Quote, I will always be a fervent advocate of a Europe that is democratic, strong, united, and the master of its own destiny, he said, before adding that he will reflect on the nature and direction of my future commitments once his term ends later this year. So basically what he's saying is that they promised me a really good job, a really good position if I would stay on board as Council President and not run for the Parliament. So that's what he means by I'll reflect on my future once my term ends. He'll be given some position at the WHO or the World Bank or something like that, or some think tank, the Tony Blair think tank for war and warmongering, where Santa Marin is located. He'll be given some position like that. But yeah, Charles Michel talking about, what was the quote that he said? Talking about the EU being a master of its own destiny. Yeah, right. The EU, a master of its own destiny. 100% subservient to the United States, the master of its own destiny. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. The Duran.local.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. 15% off all t-shirts. Brunch is back. Yes, it is. Take care.